Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news as new bids are tipped to go in for Rasmus Hojlund. We've got the latest from Fabrizio Romano and other outlets talking about that. Also, new inquiries for Harry Maguire. We'll be talking about that as well. The transfer fee revealed for ONANA. Is it a murder madness or is it just a decent deal for everybody? We'll be talking about that as well. Also want to talk about Amrabat. I'm quite interested in what's going on with that. Dean Henderson's situation's rather interesting. Now expected to be going on the tour. I've got a theory on why that's a good idea for Manchester United. Give it credit where it's due, if that is to happen. Also, we'll be talking about Alanga, Scott McTominay. Bruno Fernandes offered to go to Saudi Arabia as well. He's not going to go, but that's really interesting in itself. So lots to get into on the morning show. Hope you're feeling good. Happy to be here. Fantastic. I tell you what, who we are happy to have here as well. Manscaped. They're sponsoring us on some of our tour shows. Remember, Man United on tour tomorrow in Scotland. Then they're heading to America. Scooby-Doo. But big shout out to Manscaped. I mentioned it to you yesterday. You can get the lawnmower. You can get the 4.0 to trim the grass downstairs, trim the grass to make the yard look bigger. You've got the weed whacker for your nose. These are fantastic products, and you can get 20% off with the code United Stand, free delivery to your door. But they've just released this, the beard trimmer, and it's absolutely massive, and it's absolutely incredible. It's waterproof. Look at the sound on that. I ain't messing about. Don't get it near your eye. Yeah, it's got loads and loads of different lengths on it. I mean, I always have a beard. I always like a bit of stubble, so I always have it at a 1. This goes down to a 0.5, which is even shorter if you want to go for that. Incredible bit of kit. Brand new out. Manscaped. Brilliant, brilliant for male grooming. I mean, the quality of the products, you know, they're just amazing. 20% off. Free worldwide shipping with the code United Stand. Links in the video description, or you can scan the QR code. Absolutely fantastic. And I'm telling you now, I've been struggling for years for a trimmer for my balls. No, I'm joking. I've been struggling for years for a trimmer for my beard, or my stubble. Not really a beard. And that has just got so many lengths on it. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Anyway, let's hit the news. Right, so big shout out to Manscaped, as I said. But with Manchester United, my eye's okay. It's absolutely fine. It was just one of those. I think it was just in shock, really. Nobody wants one of those in their eye. But let's move on. G says, what's male grooming? Well, basically, I'm a male because of what I've got between my legs. And grooming is, you know, like having a shave, doing your hair. I didn't think I'd have to explain what that is, but there we go. Try to get... I don't know what your interpretation of male grooming is, but you'll probably get locked up for it. But yeah, everyone else who's without a sinister mind knows what I'm talking about. Trying to get tickets right now. Send good vibes, people, says Javier. Thank you very much. Right, let's get going. So we're going to start off on Rasmus Hojlund, but just a few interesting bits. Manchester Evening News saying that there's been new inquiries for Harry Maguire. We'll talk about that. They're also saying that Dean Henderson has been told to go on the tour because the offer from Manchester United isn't good enough. How's your eye, Mark? I've just said that, Ayush. Thank you very much. But we're going to start off with the Rasmus Hojlund story. And I've got a really interesting thing I want to talk about Amrabat as well. I really want to talk about him a little bit later in the show. I saw on Twitter that your vibrator damaged your eye, Mark. Hope you're feeling better, you naughty boy, says Gabriel. Don't believe everything you read on Twitter. The truth was on the 8 o'clock show last night. So, here we go. Basically, what Fabrizio Romano is saying is that Manchester United are considering and discussing an opening bid for Rasmus Hojlund this week. Now, this is coming in from Fabrizio, but also Chris Wheeler is saying this. Man United are closing in on a deal for Rasmus Hojlund. So I think what it's fair to say with Hojlund is that it sounds like there's going to be a new bid, an initial bid, and it feels like that this deal, you know, surprise, surprise, Slow Sports News, might be a little bit more advanced than people think. This doesn't surprise me because, without boring everybody for the millionth time, we were ahead of the game on the United Stand with Rasmus Hojlund. We said it at the start of June that United were in talks and they wanted him, and it was hotter than the sun. So it's not surprising to me that United might be ready to sort of bid this week because there's a lot of work gone in. It's not like they're knocking on the door of Rasmus and Atalanta and saying, it could be you. Like, that's been going on for weeks. United have just prioritised other things. I still stand by what I said. I still think that this deal will take a couple of weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, because United don't negotiate quick, and it feels like there's a difference between what Atalanta want and what Manchester United want. However, I'm not sat there in the negotiations. I don't know. I know that from Rasmus Hojlund's side, he's very excited and very relaxed about the situation. Basically, we'll see what happens and when it happens. But how quick this is going to happen, I just think I've walked down this path so many times with many of you, and I'm not going to start saying the deal done by the end of the week, here we go by Wednesday. I'd love that to happen, and I'm not saying it won't, but as a percentage, I'd say I'm 90% sure that won't happen. All seriousness, do you think there's a chance we're going to get Hojlund before the end of the next week, and who's most likely to be the next signing, says Gabriel? Well, that's exactly what I was going to say next. I believe we will get Rasmus Hojlund. I'm massively confused by how, I think it was James Ducker from The Telegraph last night mentioned £85 million for Rasmus Hojlund. We've had 70 million euros from Fabrizio yesterday. And there seems to be a massive disparity between what the UK press are reporting and what the European press are reporting, and ultimately what we've been hearing as well. I've always heard that the construction of this deal will be big, but based on add-ons. So if United agree to pay £50 million now, the final deal might be 70, 80 million pounds based on how many goals he scores. So that's what I've always heard. Now, I might end up being right on that, and I heard that weeks ago. Things might have changed. I'm not involved in negotiations. So, I mean, look, maybe James Ducker's right. Maybe it is 86 million. I can't see it. 86 million pounds is 100 million euros. They can't ask for that amount of money. They sort of did us on Ahmad in the past, and I'm sure somebody said that Atalanta's sporting director was the same guy who was at Leicester when they paid 80 million. I don't know whether that's a myth or not, but look, I think the price thing is interesting, but I think it's being massively, massively over-egged. Remember, Chelsea wanted 70, 80 million pounds for Mason Mount. We paid 55. So I don't really massively take a lot of notice about the actual price. I think the deal will get done. My interpretation is whether we'll get this deal done this week, no. I just don't think that's how United operate, and if they do, well done. Do I think it'll happen next week? No, because we'll be on the tour. And the reason for that is Erik ten Hag will say to Manchester United, I'd rather he was training pre-season with Atalanta until we get back from the US tour than sign him while we're on tour. There's no point flying him out, and then he's just not training properly at Carrington for a week. So I think you've got to look at this in relation to the context of pre-season now. Hojlund is either better off coming on tour with United, or he's better off training with Atalanta for a couple of weeks. There is no point signing Hojlund officially next week, and then he can't be on the tour. Now remember, Man United will be back from the tour 2 weeks today, basically. 2 weeks today, we're back from the USA. It sounds like we're going on tour for ages, but it's 2 weeks. So I would imagine Rasmus Hojlund's deal will coincide with any date from 2 weeks today, so that when he does sign, he seamlessly goes from training with the Atalanta to training with Manchester United. Do you think we will ultimately land Hojlund, or do you think we should just keep an eye on it, says Claudio? Hilarious. Let's hope United keep their eye on the balls with this deal. Yeah, thank you, Tom. Reese has gifted a membership, 5 memberships. Thank you very much. Hi, Mark. I'm coming from Melbourne, Australia for the Wolves game. Do you think there's any chance of Hojlund being in the squad, says Connor? I'm not going to make any promises, but I hope so, Andy. I hope so. Andy Weatherall, thank you very much for that. Appreciate that, as always, gifting a membership. Love the morning show, says United We Stand. And I think Rasmus Hojlund does happen, but I don't think it's going to happen very quickly. And I think that with the tour, not a chance. And I think he will nestle into the team somewhere 2 weeks from now. He'll start coming in. I don't see it happening any quicker. I mean, I might be completely wrong on that. There's certainly a lot of talk about a bid going in, but I don't think it's going to be a quick deal for Manchester United. And Atalanta weren't interested in any players going the other way, so I don't think it will be very quick. But I hope it is. Freshbridge says Ike. Thank you very much. Just on transfers. As we know, and I think this is really important, United are doing a lot of activity around Serie A. I don't know whether it's lost on anybody, but obviously ONANA, Inter Milan, Rasmus Hojlund, Atalanta. potentially Amrabat, Fiorentina. So we are doing a lot of business in Italy again. And I just want to give a big shout out to Di Marzio, because I remember the the Don Di Marzio days when we got Mourinho, and we signed Pogba, and we signed Zlatan, and we signed Mkhitaryan, all of them Mino Raiola clients, and Di Marzio was absolutely spot on. He sort of fell off a little bit in relation to Man United transfer news for a number of years, but with United going back in for Italian players, and I'm trying to think, have we bought any players from Serie A since that summer? I feel like I'm missing out somebody massively, but I don't recall us bringing in a player from there. Anyway, Di Marzio has arguably been right up there with Fabrizio in relation to this ONANA deal, and although we'll give the shout out to the Athletic here, and the reason I'm saying this is for very good reasons. Although it's we tweeted Laurie Whitwell, so that's why I'm showing you on the screen there. Breaking: Man United agree final fee with Inter for Andre Onana. Price is 51 million plus add-ons. That went out this morning from Laurie. Di Marzio said last night 55 million, and it includes add-ons. So it's Di Marzio who's led this story. I don't think that any UK journalist has been that well informed on this at all. It's been a really interesting summer transfer window so far, because we have primarily been focusing on Italy, and it's Di Marzio who deserves a massive shout out. The UK press have not been very well informed on Onana or Rasmus Hojlund, and we'll see how that develops. So I want to just give a shout out to Di Marzio, because he said that last night, 55 million euros, and he's been absolutely spot on. I want to talk about more fresh things, fresh inquiries for Harry Maguire, etc. But just on the price for Onana, it's very Mason Mount for me. It's really about it's a good price. I mean, look, I don't deal in euros. Azad says, can you call Gabby I played the game at Pratt for his Talk Sport comments about Harry Maguire this morning? Well, I wasn't going to talk about that, Azad, but we will talk about. I'll throw that into the Maguire story in a minute. And if United didn't want a dragged out transfer with Kane, why are we potentially going to get involved in a dragged out transfer with Hojlund, says Richard. Richard, I think that was just paper talk. Just tried out Joel's Lawnmower 4.0. Great razor. Gave a nice close shave to my face, says Abraham Glazer. Yeah, I mean, look, in relation to Harry Kane, most of us said we don't want a long, protracted transfer. But I think if Spurs had said they'll sell him to us, we would have gone all summer on that. Yeah, I think we would have done. So look, 55 million euros. It's 51 million euros plus 4 million euros in add-ons. 51 million euros is about 44 million pounds. So Manchester United have paid 44 million pounds for Onana, and there are add-ons there. Man United paid 55 million pounds for Mount with add-ons. So we spent 100 million pounds basically on Onana and Mount. 100 million pounds for those two players. And I think you look at that so far and you go 6 out of 10. I mean, 55 million for Mount, a little bit more, but not massively more than I think he's worth. 44 million pounds for Onana, I think it's just about bang on what he's worth. I'd put Onana somewhere between 40 and 50 million pounds. So, in some ways, it's a positive because United normally overpay. But let's not start pretending that we've done some sort of negotiating madness. We've taken weeks to get these deals over the line, and we've ended up paying a market price, which I think Chelsea will say 55 million for Mount's a good deal, and Inter will say 44 million pound is a good deal for Onana, especially when you consider that Inter Milan have got some financial problems themselves. I think they're fair prices for both players. I don't think we've got a bargain, and I don't think we've been ripped off. So, take that as a positive or whatever. Navin says, thoughts about Amrabat being on Liverpool's shortlist to replace Fabinho. I'd hate for us to miss out because we're slower than a snail's fart. And why do United take an eternity to do anything, says Stitch. Well, I want to talk about this Harry Maguire development and what's going on with Dean Henderson, of course, because this is breaking sort of news, fresh news this morning. But I did want to bring Amrabat into the show, so thank you very much to Navin. Liverpool are going to sell Fabinho to Saudi Arabia. Well done. That's going to give them an issue in the midfield that they need to replace. Lavia is their target, but Chelsea and Arsenal are monitoring Lavia as well. I mean, how the bloody hell Arsenal are getting Declan Rice and considering Lavia as well, and we can't even be asked to replace, we don't even have an understudy for Casemiro, and Arsenal could get Lavia and Rice, who are both ridiculously young as well. Chelsea could get Casidio and Lavia. So there's levels to this game, and people are trying to pretend we're having a good transfer window, and yet we're not even making a splash in the midfield. I think it's massively important that Man United get Amrabat. I know he wouldn't be my first, third, fourth, fifth choice, really, but we've got to get somebody, and if he's the guy that falls into the transfer budget that we've got, we need to get hold of Amrabat. We've got to get hold of a midfielder. I think it's absolutely essential. And the reason is midfield differentials. When I look at Man United last season, and I look at it when we go to the Etihad or the Emirates or St James's Park or Anfield, I think we're in trouble. We're totally reliant on Casemiro, and he can't do it on his own anyway. When you go to those away grounds, you're going to have to dig in. Your back four will get overwhelmed no matter how good it is from midfield runners, and Casemiro can't pick them all up. So you've got to have a midfielder who can play with Casemiro in those difficult games and give some defensive support to him and the back four. And Amrabat gives you that. McTominay doesn't, Fred doesn't, Eriksen certainly doesn't, and I don't think it's in Mason Mount's skill set either. So Amrabat's so important because he gives you differential options throughout the seasons. You can play a midfield two away from home in the Champions League sometimes. That will be important. He's also a progressive ball-carrying midfielder as well. So if you want a little bit more security at home, but he can also progress with the ball, I think it's absolutely essential that we bring in a midfielder like that, because we just do not have that profile of midfield. If we want to stick somebody next to Casemiro with a little bit more defensive suitability, we don't have that. And he's a fantastic, tenacious, aggressive tackler of the ball as well. So he can work in a system where you might want to be a bit aggressive in the first 20 minutes against a lesser team at home. You might just want to drop him into the midfield and say, go and get it. Also, you can drop him into the midfield if Casemiro's suspended or needs a rest. So that sort of a midfielder is so important for Manchester United. And I think if they skip it and ignore it, it'll cost us in the season. Clear tactics from United to piss people off that much that they're happy to see any deal and accept it as a good window. Can't fall for it anymore, says Matt. And I, Mark, love the show and content. I saw a story regarding Rudiger to United. In your opinion, do you think this is a thing? Obviously, once the striker is done, says Dave. I've heard absolutely nothing on Rudiger, so I'm reacting to that story completely not having a clue. And I would like Gravenberch, Luke. I'd love Gravenberch. Is Leon Goretzka available as well, says Mikael Roach. Well, it's interesting about Goretzka and Rudiger. I've got no idea about whether United are linked to those players, but remember, Man United were looking at Rudiger before he went to Real Madrid. I don't remember whether that was a Ranić suggestion. I think it was more Ranić, wasn't it? I think it was around March time before Ten Hag was even here. But we were definitely interested in Rudiger when he chose Real Madrid. But I think it was the Ranić recommendation. I don't think it was a Ten Hag one. So yeah, I don't think there's. I've heard nothing about it, but I do remember we were linked to him. But I'm pretty sure it was a Ranić thing. Sticking with centre-back, a couple of stories coming out from the Manchester Evening News. First of all, Dean Henderson apparently has been told to prepare to go on the tour. Remember, we said he wouldn't be going on the tour because we'd be selling him this week to Nottingham Forest. Apparently, Man United are not happy with the offer that Forest have made, so much so that they've said to Dean Henderson, prepare to go on the tour because there's no imminent deal happening with Nottingham Forest. Now, there'll be outrage about that, of course. People will be going, we need that money. No, we don't need Dean Henderson at the football club. We need to move him on. We've got to get him out of the club. That's 20 million there that we need. But I actually agree with United on this. If you say to Dean Henderson, we're not happy with the offer from Forest, but don't come on the tour, you're basically saying to Forest that, he's not part of our plans and, they can hardball it. I think if you take him on the tour, you're saying, look, we're not messing about. You've not offered what we want. He's getting on the plane. You either increase the offer and you can fly him back, or we will take him on the tour and his agent will have to start talking to other clubs, because there's no future for Dean Henderson at Manchester United. But what people need to understand about transfers is It's not United's job to start picking up the phone for everybody else and saying, do you want Dean Henderson? Do you want Dean Henderson? You take him on the tour. Dean Henderson doesn't want to be here. I respect that. ONANA's the number one. You're never going to be the number one. But your agent needs to find you a move, not us. Forest is where you want to go. They've not offered the money we want. We're not going to let you stay back in Manchester training with the kids at Carrington while, waiting for your Forest move. You get on the plane, you come and train hard, and ultimately you find a move. You're not number one. You can be the number two. I think it basically gives Forest a kick up the arse. I think actually on this, it's very easy to be critical of United, but I actually agree with this tactic. At the end of the day, if Forest aren't going to offer what Man United want, then you put him on the plane, you take him on the tour, and you say to him, look, you can go, but you better get your agent to do your job. A year ago, you were saying you were scared of me seeing you train because you said I'd want to keep you. I've seen you train for 2 weeks. I've just bought ONANA. Go and get yourself a deal. But you're getting on the plane. Maguire, freed from the shackles put on him by De Gea, will be a different beast. Just wait and see instead of giving up on him, my captain, says Rash. Slow Sports News, mate. It's already over. If Mason returns, do you think we could use him at striker instead of on the right if we miss out on a forward, says Josh. Mason. Oh, sorry. When you say Mason, I just think Mason Mount. I don't think Mason Greenwood anymore. Well, United have got to make a decision on Mason Greenwood. I don't see him playing for Man United this season. I think it would be an absolute disaster to do that for everybody involved. But United have got to make a decision on Mason Greenwood. You can't just keep kicking that down the road. I mean, we saw last week that he's had a kid, it's the same as any footballer. You don't want to leave the UK because you've got a young family. Well, ultimately, what you're going to do then? Just run your contract down and get paid a couple of, whatever he gets paid a month. There needs to be a decision there, and United need to move, because that's when, quite understandably, you start getting people think maybe Greenwood's going to start up front next season. He's not, on a footballing sense, he's not even on pre-season. How can he start up front? He's not played competitive football for months. And he's not trained, he's not part of pre-season, so how's he going to play against Wolves? It's not going to happen. But of course, United are creating that confusion by not reacting to that confusion. Also in the Manchester Evening News, they're saying that Man United had lowered their fee for Elanga down to 10 million, but the interest from Everton and Forest is driving that price up. Personally, I think with Elanga, every million that you can add on there is a good thing for Man United, and I think if we can get it to around 15 million, that's a good deal. I've always been a fan of Elanga. I just think if he'd gone on loan 18 months ago to the Championship, he might have had a chance at United, but we've stunted his growth, and I think he's absolutely right to move. Zane says, I disagree you saying ONANA is better than Ramsdale. Italy is an easier league and you can't judge him on a final, but he's a very good goalkeeper. Yeah, Zane, unfortunately, I'm not one of those people who saw ONANA for the first time in the Champions League final, like some people seem to think. ONANA has been a goalkeeper that many people who follow European football has been aware about for a long time, going back to his Ajax days. I think he genuinely comes in for £44 million. That's a lot of money for a goalkeeper. For what he's done at Inter last season, not just in the Champions League, he's a very good goalkeeper. He ain't coming here to play golf. He isn't coming here to prove himself. He's coming in to replace David De Gea, who won the Golden Glove last year, and I think he's got the personality and ability to do that. He's not here to, he's not here on trial. I think ONANA comes in with the reputation as being one of the best goalkeepers in Europe, and that's where he settles in. Why should he come in and respect Ramsdale? Why should he come in and respect Nick Pope or Ederson? I don't get it. I think people are just Premier League bias. They think that this league that was built on money is some sort of, A-star, you've got to come in and prove yourself. I don't think he does. We've spent £44 million on a goalkeeper. That's not loose change. We've spent £44 million on one of the best ball-playing modern goalkeepers in the game at the moment. He comes in, and for me, he nestles straight into the top 3 goalkeepers in the league. That's what I'm saying. And whether I'm right or wrong on that, is that not what we're buying? I mean, it's almost like people say, oh, no, I don't know where he ranks in the best goalkeepers at the moment. We've spent £44 million on him. He's one of the best goalkeepers in Europe. He comes into this league and that's where he settles. It's up to him where he goes. But I think he's a better goalkeeper than Ramsdale. Ramsdale with his feet. I mean, Ramsdale's more De Gea than he is Alisson. Let's be honest. I like De Gea and I like Ramsdale, but he's more of a De Gea type goalkeeper than he is an Alisson or an ONANA anyway. So if you want a ball playing goalkeeper, you wouldn't buy Ramsdale. He ain't nowhere near the level of an Edison and an Onana or an Alisson. He's a shot stopper and he's a personality, and I think Ramsdale should be England's number one, but he ain't the goalkeeper we've just bought, I'm afraid. Zayn Miasi's just gifted a membership as well. Well, I'm sure he's feeling very generous. Arsenal are doing very, very well. Yeah, anyway, I've been skirting the issue here. So, Harry Maguire. Apparently, there's been fresh inquiries for Harry Maguire. This has been coming out from the Manchester Evening News. So, this sort of fits in, quite predictably and interestingly with what we were talking about last night. Lots of sources close to West Ham are saying that they're getting a bit frustrated with Maguire. He's sort of not open to a move. And I think that the interesting thing is that we said it last night as well. Maybe Harry Maguire doesn't fancy West Ham because he thinks he can do better. We've heard the rumours about Pochettino and Chelsea. We've heard the rumours about Spurs. We've heard the rumours about Newcastle. Well, with all due respect to West Ham, if you're Harry Maguire and there's any chance of Newcastle and Chelsea, you're going to pick them. And actually, if it's a choice between Spurs and West Ham, you're probably going to pick Spurs, rightly or wrongly, for status reasons as well. So I think with Harry Maguire, there is a lot of interest, and it's a very similar situation to Dean Henderson. He's been told to go. He's got to get his agent to find a move now, and it will be Harry Maguire's agent going around speaking to clubs that Harry's interested in joining and saying, look, is there something we can do here? So it's encouraging that it's literally been less than 48 hours since Harry Maguire was told he can leave and had the captaincy taken off him, that there are inquiries. Now, look, Harry Maguire will get ridiculed, of course he will, but I still think in the right system, he's a good defender. I don't know how Pochettino's going to play. I don't know how Spurs are going to play. But looking at the way Spurs and Chelsea have played in recent years with three centre-backs, I think Harry Maguire would work quite well. He just doesn't work well at Man United. When we win the league, as City have lost Silva, Gundogan and Mahrez, let's see at the end of the season, says Zayn. Okay. So, Harry Maguire should go to Wrexham. Maguire doesn't think West Ham is his level, but it is, says Paul Lucas. Well, it's interesting. I'll bring it in here. So Gabby Agbonlahor was on TalkSport this morning saying that United's a circus and Harry Maguire needs to get away from there, and basically the social media haters or whatever like that. I just think that sort of analysis isn't useful when it's not the social media haters. It's not a circus. We finished third in the league. We got to 2 cup finals. And the manager is trying to progress the team and the way that it plays, and he's being ruthless like Pep Guardiola was in his first few years. I saw another TalkSport presenter yesterday say that selling Harry Maguire is a bit odd because surely it's the manager's job to train the player and make him better. And I actually replied to it and I said, this is ridiculous. Pep Guardiola got rid of Joe Hart. He didn't think, I'm going to train Joe Hart and make him better. That's a nonsense. Good coaching is being ruthless. Good coaching is realising that a player's not good enough. This is not a witch hunt against Harry Maguire. It's got nothing to do with the fans. It's got, the fans have wanted players to be signed for years that don't get signed. The fans have wanted players to get sold and dropped for years and they don't get sold or dropped. The manager makes the decision. It's got nothing to do with United being a circus. It's got nothing to do with social media. It's got nothing to do with match-going fans. And people forget that those United players at the end of last season, not the season that's gone, the season before, were being booed by the greatest fans in the league, in my opinion. Our away fans are the best in the league. And they were booing those players, shouting, "You're not fit to wear the shirt." So this nonsense about social media. I mean, I saw somebody tweet yesterday that football was so much better in the 90s and the 80s and the early noughties when there was no social media, when fans used to get behind their players and never said anything. And I was like, oh my God, I started going to games in the 80s. It was a bloody unbelievable experience compared to today. There wasn't any families there. There was hardly any women there. It was a very male orientated fan base, and it was rough. It was rowdy. There was a lot of swearing going on. I remember going to United in the early noughties, and then anybody who did, they'll completely back me on this. The Old Trafford crowd used to get on Giggsy's back all the time because Giggsy was a great player, but could have very frustrating games where he'd take his player on 6 or 7 times and just keep running into them. And on the 8th time, he'd whip a cross in and we'd score. So this nonsense that social media e-fans have made football toxic is bullshit. I mean, it's absolute bullshit. John Barnes used to get bananas thrown at him. Racism. People used to, it's unbelievable what people used to shout at people in the 80s and the 90s and the noughties. So, look, social media is actually quite tame. It's just what everybody uses now. So to say that, Harry Maguire needs to leave Manchester United because the, social media fans, etc., etc., it's got nothing to do with that. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got everything to do with the manager wanting to change things to make the team better in his vision. This is on Eric Ten Hag's shoulders. It's nothing to do with the fans. It's ridiculous. Oh, let's keep Harry Maguire and Anthony Martial and Scott McTominay because a few people don't think they're good enough in the fan base. Oh, it's not a bloody charity. Eric Ten Hag makes the decisions. We've just changed the goalkeeper. I wouldn't have done it. I back the manager. Embrace the change. The keeper he's bringing in, I completely understand why he's done it. I would have waited a year and used the money elsewhere. I'm not the manager. Eric Ten Hag's the manager. I would have sold Harry Maguire last summer. He wanted to give him another year. He did. It wasn't right. We move on. This is it. This is it. And look, everybody's got an entitlement to an opinion, but the nonsense that Eric Ten Hag should train Harry Maguire to be better. He's 31 next season. The nonsense that Harry Maguire needs to get away from the circus of Manchester United that's not appreciated him. He's been at the club for 3.5 years. He's been the worst captain in our Premier League history. Fact. He's not set the world on fire. He's not good enough for Manchester United. There's a few others as well. It's not just Harry. It's Scott McTominay, in my opinion. Fred. I've mentioned Martial's got to go. There's plenty of players. We're Manchester United. We set a benchmark, and that's what it is. And hallelujah, we've actually now got a manager that's doing it. And lo and behold, the manager starts getting ruthless. And because he's doing it to somebody with a British passport, the British media piles on as per usual. If it's a foreign player, they won't say anything. Nobody said anything about David De Gea. But because it's Harry Maguire, I mean, if you look at last season and the last 10 years, David De Gea eclipses Harry Maguire for what he's done in a Man United shirt. Gets hung out to dry at the end of the season. Barely a word said about it. Ten Hag takes the captaincy from Harry Maguire. It's on the front pages of most newspapers. Oh, it's a disgrace. There's clearly footballing decisions on both. People need to grow up. There'll be players I don't want to be sold that get sold. There'll be players I do want to get sold that get kept. It's been happening for years. But I actually think that Eric Ten Hag's doing a good job. And, look at what happened with Ronaldo. Look at what happened with De Gea. Look at what's happening with Maguire. I think he needs to do it 5 or 6 more times, to be honest. And he needs to be backed. Simple as. Simple as. So, look, yeah, embrace opinion. Everybody's entitled to one. But, come on. I don't think there's any sinister reason that Eric Ten Hag is removing players this summer. I think he's looked at it and gone, I need to improve here, 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 and here. And on that point as well, we're talking about Varane last night, and I said that, in my opinion, it's ridiculous to say that Varane is the next problem in the team. I actually think he was a huge positive last year. I still think he's one of the best centre-backs in the world. I don't think it's an issue we need to be looking at any time in the near future. And what I said is, the real issues for me that we need to look at is how we create chances in the final third. To which a few people said, Goldbridge says Bruno doesn't create chances. Let me take a screenshot from Wisecout. I stand by what I said. We don't create enough chances. We do not retain possession in the final third. United are meant to be building something in the vision of what Ten Hag ball is. Ten Hag ball was demonstrated at Ajax. It's over 70% possession. It's over 10, 20 shots per game. We're nowhere near that last season. We're nowhere near 70% possession in most games. The way to get 70% possession is to get possession high up the pitch and be patient with it. We're not like that. There's no point bringing a ball-playing goalkeeper in, transitioning from back to midfield and then shooting from 30 yards because nobody's got the confidence to retain possession in the final third. This was evident to me last year. We're terrible at it. The last few weeks of the season, we were awful, and I'm not naming players, at getting to the final third and shooting. I think Brighton away was the worst one I've ever seen. Everybody just shoots all the time. We've got to change that. We've got to be more patient in the final third. And I don't care what the stats are for Bruno chance creation because he can double that if we become better in the final third, more patient, and have a focal point striker. And I think that's the next stage for Manchester United. I'm a massive fan of Bruno Fernandes. I don't need to justify that to anybody. I was bloody championing Bruno months before anybody knew he was even linked to United. So I love Bruno Fernandes. He's a key part of our team. He quite rightly will be the captain, but there's a lot of work for United to do in the final third, and I think that's probably why Erik ten Hag was so obsessed with Mason Mount. Many people see Mason Mount as simply an upgrade on Christian Eriksen. I think a lot of it's to do with transition in the final third, possession in the final third, and chance creation in the final third. And I think Erik ten Hag wants that, and I think it's a massive area of improvement for Manchester United, where some people seem to just be obsessed on the ability to pass out from the back. But what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? You know, we've got to be better in the final third, and I think Erik ten Hag is adamantly working on that. Was ONANA the best option? Could we have got Costa, says Dav? Well, I think I speak for most people in the chat that if you had a choice between Costa and ONANA, you would go for ONANA. Costa is a good goalkeeper, but I was never comfortable with Costa. I know a lot of people were. I didn't like the profile of Costa. Look, in relation to ability to pass out from the back, take crosses, save shots, Costa's very, very interesting. But where's the queue for Costa this summer? There isn't one. And I think the downfall of Costa is probably still, there's a bit of a question mark over temperament and readiness. The big attraction with ONANA is the personality. You need a personality. You need broad shoulders. You need charisma. And ONANA brings that, as well as the qualities that Costa's got. I mean, look, it's very unfair to judge a player on one game, but Portugal got knocked out of the World Cup because of Costa. He cost them. He's playing in the Portuguese league. The Portuguese league ain't Serie A. It ain't Premier League. It ain't La Liga. So I think the choice between ONANA and Costa was an easy one. And on top of that as well, and probably the number one reason, is that Erik ten Hag knows ONANA. He knows the personality, he knows the player, and he knows what he will get. Costa could cost you. I think Costa will be a good goalkeeper. I'm surprised that Chelsea haven't moved for him. They need a goalkeeper, but I think ONANA was the right choice. I mean, some people in the chat are saying that Costa's better. Prove it. Prove it. Based on what? Based on what? Based on a few games for Portugal and a good season in the Portuguese league, I think ONANA's the right choice. But I don't like these sort of conversations because it's almost like, the traffic light system of red and green. Most people live a life of red and green is extreme and red is extreme, negative and positive. There is an amber, and I choose to operate in there a lot of my life. I think Costa's a fantastic goalkeeper. I'm not saying it's obvious to pick ONANA. I think we made the right choice in going for ONANA, but Costa's a very good goalkeeper. Let the media build up Maguire, that way more clubs will be interested and probably willing to pay more. Poor attitude and poor performance, is time to go, says Owen. I'm encouraged that there's interest in Harry, and I think it's important that United move him on ASAP. The worst thing that could happen is that we suffer a couple of injuries in pre-season to Varane and Lindelof, and then Maguire's front of house again. I don't see a redemption arc, and I don't think a redemption arc serves anybody well. I mean, the worst case scenario is that Lindelof and Varane get injured for a couple of months. Maguire starts the season with Martinez. Everyone's saying give him the captaincy back, he's doing quite well. And then what happens is that Varane and Lindelof come back and he loses his place again. So I don't see a world where Harry Maguire is ever better than Varane or Lindelof, and therefore even if he does play some games, I think it will be short-lived. At no point last season could he establish himself. He did play a few games, but Lindelof would come back and be better than him. Varane was obviously better than him. It obviously needs to move, unless, you know, he's happy being something else. A lot of people mentioning Ryan Giggs in the chat. I mean, look, we don't really talk about Giggsy that much because there's obviously things going on, but some people are saying he's a free man. Let's have a look if there's anything about it. I can't see anything here. I don't know where I'm meant to be looking. Okay, it's trending on Twitter. Ryan Giggs has been cleared of domestic abuse charges as the case has been dropped. Of course, he was going to be subject to a domestic violence retrial, but this has been dropped after charges were withdrawn. God, I choose not to get involved in this sort of stuff. It's the same with Mendy last week. It's the same with Greenwood. It's the same with Ryan Giggs. You're asking people to walk into such a toxic conversation about something most people don't even understand. Ultimately, in the eyes of the law, Ryan Giggs is innocent, and that is the end of the word. That is the end of the conversation, and that is the bottom line. But ultimately, there is also those people that will say, who understand the judicial system, that just because you've been found innocent doesn't mean you didn't do anything. But we must follow the law, innocent until proven guilty. That is the law line. The court of public opinion, as is with Greenwood, is a different place, of course. And yeah, I'm very glad that we're a football channel and we don't have to get into those sort of conversations. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. We're back at 2 o'clock and 8 o'clock, of course. Let's see what today brings. Don't forget Manscaped. Get the beard trimmer. It's brand new out. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code United Stand. Curtis, you're 11 legends. Thank you very much for the super chat there. And I will, I mean, look, yeah, I'm getting out while I can. Lots of people in the chat. Take